It was the largest flying machine the world had ever seen, a silver giant floating gracefully across the sky. But in just 37 seconds, that marvel became a roaring inferno, crashing into history forever. What really caused the Hindenburg to explode in flames that tragic night? Was it a tragic accident, sabotage, or something far stranger? Tonight, we unravel the mystery of the skyship that shouldn't have fallen. It began with a whisper across the clouds, a slow, majestic shape drifting above the eastern seaboard, silent, vast, and gleaming in the muted evening light. The airship, known as the Hindenburg, was nearing the end of its transatlantic voyage, and as it passed through the layers of gray spring sky, no one below could have guessed what was about to unfold. It was May 6, 1937. The LZ-129 Hindenburg was scheduled to land at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey, just as it had done before. This was supposed to be routine. The ship had made dozens of crossings already, 63 successful flights across the Atlantic Ocean. But this night would be different. This night would echo through history not as a symbol of triumph, but of tragedy. The Hindenburg was no ordinary aircraft. It was the largest airship ever built, longer than the Titanic, taller than a 15-story building when stood on end, and powered by massive engines that hummed beneath her skin like the breath of some mechanical beast. It was Germany's floating pride, a creature of aluminum and gas and fabric, cloaked in shining silver. Inside, it carried 97 souls, wealthy passengers reclining in elegant lounges, stewards pouring coffee into porcelain cups, engineers pacing along the metal catwalks deep within her frame. Outside, ground crews stood ready, gazing up at the looming shadow as it approached from above. But in that moment, no one knew how little time was left. They called her a skyship, and that's exactly how she moved. Not with the roar of engines like an airplane, but with the slow dignity of a sailing vessel. The air around her hardly stirred. The only sound was the low hum of her propellers and the soft sigh of wind brushing against her frame. For the passengers on board, the mood was peaceful. They had survived the turbulence of the North Atlantic, passed over the misty coastlines of Newfoundland, and were now descending toward the flat, marshy fields of New Jersey. They watched the approaching Earth through long windows in the promenade deck, some sipping tea, others jotting notes in travel journals. Among them were businessmen, journalists, and even a few children, all drawn to the glamour of this flying hotel in the sky. Inside the command gondola at the front of the ship, Captain Max Pruss gave orders calmly. He had flown this route before. He knew the ship. He trusted it. But something was off. The landing had been delayed. Storms earlier that day had forced the Hindenburg to circle overhead for hours, waiting for clearance. Time passed. Fuel burned. The ship's massive body swayed as it hovered, struggling to hold its position. Pruss gave the signal to begin the final descent. And then, just before they touched ground, a flicker, barely noticeable, a small blue spark near the rear of the airship. At least, that's what a few people would later claim to have seen. A flash, like static, or lightning, arcing near the tail fin. Too fast to be real. Too sudden to be forgotten. And then, a sound. A low, cracking roar. Then another. Then, flame. The air turned orange. The sky was lit with sudden fury. In less than half a minute, the largest aircraft ever built had turned into a furnace above the wet ground. But we are not there yet. Not yet. We are still in the moment before, in the calm before the blaze. But here's the part that still haunts historians and engineers alike. To this day, no one knows for certain what caused the fire. Theories abound: sabotage, accident, even conspiracy. But no answer has ever put the mystery fully to rest. Let's go back further. Let's drift back to where the Hindenburg was born, not over the fields of New Jersey, but in the hangars of Friedrichshafen, Germany. Back to a time when airships were more than machines. They were dreams made real. Germany, 1935. Still recovering from the wounds of the First World War. Still reeling under the rise of a new regime, but amid the turmoil, the Zeppelin Company, the masters of lighter-than-air travel, began to build something extraordinary. A ship that could fly from Europe to America in 3 days. A vessel of prestige and power. She was stitched together from metal girders and hydrogen cells, draped in fabric, and painted with a strange silvery compound that shimmered under sunlight. Inside, she was the height of luxury. Passengers walked polished floors. Fine meals were served on linen-covered tables. There was even a smoking room, astonishingly sealed to prevent combustion. It was a marvel. It should have been impossible, and yet she flew. The airship was meant to be a symbol of progress, but it was also a symbol of something else, of Germany's growing confidence under Hitler's rule. The swastika flew proudly on her tail. She was used for propaganda flights, paraded across cities and nations. Still, the Hindenburg carried more than politics. She carried people, real lives, real families, and in the spring of 1937, those lives climbed aboard for what they thought would be a routine trip across the sea. They laughed, they read newspapers, they watched the horizon from hundreds of feet above the ocean. They had no idea they were stepping into history. The night before the Hindenburg's final voyage, there was a strange message, a whisper in the wind that no one seemed to hear. A letter, unsigned and mysterious, arrived at the offices of the Zeppelin Company. Its contents were chilling. It spoke of danger, of fire, of destruction. Who sent it? No one knows, and no one acted on it. It was dismissed as a prank, a cruel joke amid the growing tension of the era. But the words lingered in the shadows, a silent omen of what was to come. On the morning of May 3rd, 1937, the Hindenburg began its journey across the Atlantic. The airship lifted from the mooring mast in Friedrichshafen, Germany, its engines humming softly, carrying passengers and crew, full of hope and anticipation. The voyage was smooth, almost serene. Days slipped by as the great ship sailed above clouds and seas, a silver whale gliding through the sky. Passengers made friends, told stories, and admired the endless blue below. Captain Max Pruss kept a careful eye on the instruments, his experience guiding the mammoth craft through calm and storm alike. Weather reports showed a slight chance of thunderstorms near the destination, but nothing out of the ordinary. As the days passed, tensions quietly mounted. The Hindenburg was running late. The clouds gathered over New Jersey. Lightning flashed miles away, unseen but felt. By May 6th, the ship approached Lakehurst Naval Air Station. The air was thick and humid, the sky heavy with an approaching storm. Ground crews stood ready, their eyes scanning the skies for the immense silver shape. The airship circled above for hours, waiting for a safe moment to land. Time slowed. The crew below and aboard waited, the passengers calm but uneasy. Some prayed quietly, others peered anxiously through windows, searching the gathering dark. Finally, the order was given: prepare to land. As the Hindenburg began its descent, a strange energy seemed to ripple in the air. Some witnesses would later say they saw a flicker near the tail. A tiny spark, blue and fleeting, almost like the breath of electricity dancing on the surface. Seconds later, the unimaginable happened. A sudden roar, a flash of fire. The skin of the great ship caught aflame, spreading faster than any wind. Flames licked at the fabric, turning silver to glowing orange and red. Passengers scrambled, the crew shouted, and on the ground the crowd gasped in horror. But what caused that first spark? Was it a tragic accident? A tiny electrical discharge that ignited leaking hydrogen? Or was it something more sinister? A hidden act of sabotage? The truth remains elusive, buried beneath the ashes of history. The fire consumed the Hindenburg in less than a minute. The massive airship, once a symbol of grace and power, became a fiery comet crashing to Earth. Miraculously, many survived, but 36 souls were lost that day, swallowed by flames or fallen from the burning wreck. Emergency crews rushed in, the sound of sirens mixing with the crackle of fire and the screams of survivors. Photographers captured the chaos, the images forever etched into collective memory. The disaster was broadcast worldwide. Radio announcer Herbert Morrison's trembling voice narrated the unfolding tragedy live, a haunting record of horror and disbelief. Despite the spectacle, the cause was not immediately clear. Investigators combed through the wreckage, searching for clues amid the twisted metal and ash. They found a hole, blasted outward, suggesting an explosion from within. Hydrogen, highly flammable, was the obvious culprit. But why did the gas ignite? How? Many theories emerged. A static spark caused by stormy weather, sabotage by political enemies, flammable coating on the ship's skin, human error or mechanical failure, and some whispered of darker conspiracies, secrets still hidden in government files. The world watched in stunned silence. The dream of the skyship had crashed, but the questions lived on. What really happened in those final moments? Was the disaster inevitable? Or was it a tragedy that could have been prevented? In the hours and days after the disaster, stories began to emerge, voices from the flames, whispers from survivors whose lives were forever changed. Among the 97 passengers and crew, many escaped by sheer luck, quick thinking, or the kindness of strangers. Some jumped from the burning wreckage, falling into soft mud or tangled brush below. Others helped the injured, pulling friends and strangers alike from the inferno. One survivor, a young steward named Werner Franz, was just 14 years old. He was trapped in the bowels of the airship, deep inside the control room. With smoke thickening and heat rising, Werner found a narrow escape through a small hatch, a crawl through darkness into the night. His story was one of many, quiet acts of bravery amid chaos. But, amid these personal tales, the larger story remained tangled in mystery. The official inquiry was launched by the United States Department of Commerce, seeking to unravel the cause of the catastrophe. Experts examined every piece of evidence: the wreckage, the weather, witness statements. The investigation concluded that a static spark had ignited leaking hydrogen gas, starting the blaze. It was a plausible explanation, but it left many questions unanswered. How did the hydrogen leak in the first place? Why was the fire so fast, so furious, and perhaps most unsettling of all? Why did the ship's outer skin seem to burn like it was soaked in gasoline? Some experts believe the disaster was an accident waiting to happen. Others claim that the fabric covering the Hindenburg was coated with flammable materials, a secret that turned a small spark into a blazing inferno. But the true cause remains debated, and the mystery refuses to fade. Other theories soon gained traction in the public imagination. Sabotage was a popular idea, especially given the tense political climate of the 1930s. The Nazis had many enemies, and the Hindenburg was a potent symbol of their ambitions. Rumors swirled of a secret explosive planted aboard by saboteurs, or an act of revenge by political dissidents. However, no concrete evidence ever surfaced to support these claims. Still, the whispers persisted. Meanwhile, survivors struggled with trauma and loss. Some carried scars visible only to themselves. They spoke quietly of the moments before the fire, of strange noises, of tense conversations between crew members. One passenger recalled overhearing heated words about a leaking gas valve hours before landing. Another mentioned seeing crew members checking the fabric on the hull with unusual urgency. Were these mere coincidences, or signs that something deeper was wrong? Despite the tragedy, the Hindenburg disaster marked the end of an era. The age of rigid airships, once the grandest method of air travel, faded rapidly after that terrible night. Within months, hydrogen was largely abandoned in favor of safer helium, and the world turned toward faster, more reliable airplanes. But the Hindenburg's fiery death remained etched in memory, a haunting reminder of human ambition, fragility, and the mysteries hidden in the skies. As the years passed, the disaster inspired books, documentaries, and endless speculation. Yet no single explanation has ever fully satisfied the questions. What was the spark that ignited the fire? Who, if anyone, might have wanted the Hindenburg to fall? And how did such a massive, carefully built vessel become so vulnerable in its final moments? These questions linger like smoke in the air, subtle, elusive, yet impossible to ignore. Decades after the fire, the Hindenburg disaster has continued to draw fascination and study. Scientists and historians have revisited the evidence again and again, each time searching for new clues, hoping to untangle fact from rumor, accident from design. One of the most compelling investigations came in the 1990s, when scientists analyzed samples of the airship's outer covering. What they found surprised many. The fabric was coated with a mixture containing iron oxide and aluminum powder, ingredients similar to what is used in solid rocket fuel. This coating, intended to reflect heat and light, may have been highly flammable. Experts believe that once the fire started, this rocket fuel coating could have accelerated the blaze, turning a small spark into a raging inferno. It was an ironic twist, a safety feature that may have become a deadly flaw. At the same time, hydrogen, used to keep the Hindenburg aloft, was notoriously volatile. Unlike helium, which is inert and safe, hydrogen burns fiercely when exposed to flame or spark. Imagine a delicate dance between design and disaster, a ship coated in flammable materials filled with explosive gas. Was the Hindenburg doomed from the start? Or was it a tragic coincidence, a chain of small failures leading to catastrophe? As the years turned into decades, the Hindenburg became more than a tragedy. It grew into a legend. Its fiery end was captured on film, broadcast on radio, and burned into the world's collective memory. It inspired novels, films, and even art installations. People were fascinated not only by the disaster itself, but by the era it represented, the twilight of airships and the dawn of modern aviation. Today, the story of the Hindenburg remains a powerful reminder. It speaks of ambition and risk, of human error and innovation, of a fragile balance between progress and peril. For those who listen carefully, the echoes of the disaster still whisper through time, a silent warning drifting across the skies. The Hindenburg was more than a flying machine. It was a dream woven from metal, gas, and hope. A dream that burned in an instant, leaving behind ashes and questions that still glow in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, that mystery is part of what keeps its story alive, even now. Thank you for joining this journey into the skies and the shadows of history. The Hindenburg's fiery end reminds us how fragile even our greatest dreams can be. Though the exact cause remains a mystery, its story continues to echo through time, a silent warning, a haunting legend, and a testament to human hope and tragedy. Until next time, may your nights be calm and your dreams take flight.